This is Colin Dixon with nScreenMedia, and I'm at Digital Entertainment World, and I'm with Ralf Jacob, who is Chief Revenue Officer of Verizon Digital Media Services. And Ralf, one of the things that has been talked about a lot, obviously, is on-demand delivery. And of course, we've had Ted Sarandis from Netflix saying that the world is going to go on demand and that linear is dead. Now, I don't actually believe that. And one of the reasons I don't believe that is I've seen some of the things that you're delivering, particularly with marquee customers like Disney, who are beginning to bring the linear experiences online. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Disney, helping them bring their linear experiences online?
Sure. The idea behind it is everybody's trying to move away from traditional television. And the broadcasters are starting to realize now that they don't have a one-to-one relationship now with the person sitting behind the television. Going into the online world for the first time, they're seeing the potential that with what is happening within the browsers, the devices that are actually delivering the content now back to these end users, there's the potential of figuring out who is this that is sitting on the opposite side. If you think in terms of, what linear does today, and the folks talking in the industry as linear's dead, where there's no more, linear, we actually disagree with it, and we can see from the inquiries we're getting from the broadcasters, there's a whole lot of interest in figuring out what else can we do online. The difference being is if you're taking a linear feed and you start to actually ingest it and move it into the cloud, you would think you end up with a really large file that might be 24 hours long in the cloud. The services, the way we're providing that, allows them to actually create individual assets that are now stored in the cloud, and we retain everything that they do in the typical broadcast world. So there are things like SCSI triggers that demark where an ad may start or stop. The way we're going about it is very different than what the rest of the industry does. Is we're just taking the ad starts and the ad stop markers. We don't actually capture the length of the ad. So a linear playout hour may actually look like 44 minutes of content that is then dispersed by 16 minutes of ads. It's 44 minutes of content that sits on the system. That asset now coming and being, recorded from the linear feed is, I think, where we see the potential of using the end user and the information that we have about the end user, of figuring out what are they interested in. What can we do now with all of the assets that the broadcasters are assembling in the online world? They're sitting on these vast libraries of content and waiting for somebody to search for it, and then they're playing it back. We have now come up with the concept of what we call virtual linear feeds, where we have the ability to take those individual assets and reconcatenate them once we figure out where somebody is, what their interest level might be, and so we're creating linear feeds that are targeted to the end user's preference and profile.
So you're actually bringing in the standard feed, the standard TV
Correct.
feed, and then you are reconfiguring that feed or storing all of the information about the content in that feed so that you can reconfigure it to do other things with it. Is that what you said?
That's exactly right. So we don't modify the broadcast signal itself, which is the simplification of the workflow that I think attracts the broadcasters to the system like Verizon deploys, called VLS. The idea behind it is let them put everything that is in there, the Nielsen watermarking, the SCSI triggers about ad starts, the blackout periods. Maybe certain assets are not cleared for playback in the online world. And so we're letting the broadcasters take what they're doing in the traditional over-the-air or satellite uplink downlink approach. We tell them, just hand us over the signal. We will observe those markers, and then we will start to do things with it, i.e., when there's a blackout period right now during a linear feed, I could potentially substitute that particular half hour or hour of content with a VOD asset that they captured the day before. those are the flexibilities that we have now on a day-to-day basis, where the broadcasters are seeing there's higher viewer retention because the content and the ads produced during this content are much more relevant to what's happening on television, where one feed is produced that everybody consumes. It's a one-to-many relationship. And the way we're going about it is that we actually know there's an individual session with the end user. And on that within that individual session, I'll know that Colin might be interested in comedy and drama. And so we can tailor not just the content, but also the ads that might be relevant to the content, the way you consume it.
I love that. So you're taking a one-to-many, the broadcast, and you're actually allowing the content provider to create a targeted asset out of a mass market asset, which is pretty unique. That gives them an opportunity to do some pretty interesting new things, right, that they couldn't do.
Ask yourself, why is there only one, let's call Disney for a second. Why is there only one Disney channel right now? Why couldn't there be a Disney comedy channel, a Disney drama channel, a Disney Colin channel, an ABC Colin channel, maybe just news, right? That's the potential now of the OTT world that we're playing in, where we have these capabilities, we have the technology, utilizing what the broadcasters have done in the typical broadcast world, and modifying not the triggers inside of the stream, but modifying how it actually gets consumed, rearranging maybe a playout. The playout systems and the trafficking systems that produce these linear feeds, that's 24 hours of content that is pre-packaged. In our case, it could be a simple query that Colin issues against a piece of content, and we can now search our online catalog and say, oh, he seems to be interested in everything that has to do with Modern Family. And now you're getting, maybe a marathon session of Modern Family episodes, one after the other. This induces binge watching, and the segments in between, of course, because we keep track of where the ads are, the broadcasters don't have to worry about that. I think this is why they're so attracted to the system.
So in other words, you're taking a traditional linear and you're creating the ability to do smart linear, right? It's a smart approach to the linear tradition.
Yeah, we call it virtual linear feeds because it's basically taken the VOD assets that sit idle somewhere in storage, eating up valuable storage space, but we're starting to repurpose what is out there and creating new models the way I just described them. And I think all of the broadcasters are now for the first time seeing the advantage. This could be that they can take of the knowledge that they gain to the end user, one thing that they could never do in the way traditional television consumption is handled.
I love it, Ralf. You're putting the me back into linear, which is, I think, a great thing. So this is great stuff, Ralf. Enjoy the rest of the show, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Likewise, thank you so much.
This has been Colin Dixon with nScreenMedia.